I got hurt in Afghanistan in 2010, serving with the 1st Recon Battalion, and I stepped on an IED, and there you go. It's short and sweet for you.
Okay.
So I was in 2 car accidents in a 6-week period. The second one, I was actually struck as a pedestrian by an 81-year-old man who should never have been behind the wheel.
Okay, and so how did the Spartan races start and the mud runs?
That's a good question. People ask me how I started getting carried through them. OEW definitely introduced me into Spartan races. I don't know how I started getting carried by them. It just kind of happened. And then, I fell in love with the community, and, of course, me being from Atlanta, I kind of wanted this one to be the first one, that I really did on my own, and it was pretty tough.
How many do you have under your belt right now?
That's a good question. 4 or 5, I think. Okay. But I would consider this one my first. It's not my first, but it's a first in a way,
Now, were you part of the Virginia Super Spartan they had? Okay, I remembered seeing you. That was a brutal course, but you had help on that one.
It was brutal. I liked it though, because when it's flat, they run, and it's kind of tough in the pack. But when it's nice and hilly like that, it forces them to walk it, and it's not. So I'm not getting banged around. So it's a give and take.
Okay, same question for you. How did you get started?
Well, I did my first 5K actually after I got injured is when I met Todd. So it was just in New York City with a bunch of guys, mainly wounded warriors from Walter Reed. And I finished last at a 35,000, but I finished. And I realized that day that I'm not going to stop when I'm tired or in pain or have a long way left to go. I'm going to stop when I'm done. And then through there, I just started meeting all these people like Todd and other people were just pushing themselves past their limitations, and people, everyone has an excuse, just some of us choose not to use them. So next thing I knew, I was signed up for every athletic event on the Eastern Seaboard, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I might die. But then I realized, obviously, we don't die, so I might as well just start living. So next thing I knew, I was doing Spartan races, and my crutches pretty much break. I'm lucky if I can get 2 races out of my crutches before they snap off. These broke. There's string holding this guy together. It broke in this course. But I have lots of extra parts with me, and you just roll with it, and it's awesome.
And what is the hardest obstacle? What's the one you dread when you come to a Spartan? Same question for both of you.
I'll let you go first.
Okay, well, I never dreaded any obstacle until we were at the Beast in Glen Rose. That's where I got my trifecta, actually. And we were at the slippery knot right at the end. It was the 3rd or 2nd to last obstacle, and we were covered like this, and there was only one person really left on my team, so he was at the ledge. So I got up to the top, and we linked hands, and we were looking at each other like, oh my gosh, we're about to do this. And then all of a sudden I felt my hand coming out of my glove, and then it was pop, and then we looked at each other, and apparently I flipped back, I hit my head, I got knocked out, I broke 4 ribs, I got a concussion, but I opened my eyes. I didn't know where I was, but I knew I was on the ground, and that wasn't cool, so I jumped back up. Then I shook my head a little bit, and I realized that if I thought about it, the fear was going to step in, and I was never going to do the obstacle. And people were saying, this was a valiant effort. I think it's time to call it quits. I'm like, no way. I didn't get tortured for 12 hours. I wasn't out here 28-degree weather for nothing. I'm finishing. So I tried once more, and when I got to the top, they told me there was a surprise for me at the finish line. So I looked through the fire, and there was Todd at the finish line with my medal and hot chocolate. So I never moved so fast in my life. So I was dreading the slippery knot today. I'm like, oh my gosh. So we meet again. But it was fine.
I heard that actually from Chris Davis. He said that one was tough for him too. He actually got knocked out as well.
Only the coolest get knocked out.
So, obstacle that you particularly don't look forward to?
It's actually not the obstacles for me. It's the hills. A lot of the hills are the toughest part for me. Some of the obstacles are give take, but my favorite, I would say, is probably the barbed wire crawl. I think I do have an advantage at the barbed wire crawl. Now, I was kind of weak on this one because I'm exhausted.
No, he was still faster than everyone else.
Your favorite?
My favorite, I love doing the log carry when you strap it into because whenever we get to them, everyone says, oh, are you going to skip it? And I'm like, yeah. And then they say, okay. I'm like, no, I didn't come here to skip obstacles. So then we put it in my camelback, between my camelback and my back, and with the sandbag.
Yes.
And I love those because everyone else is up there complaining, at Wintergreen with the logs. All these big, huge dudes were psyching themselves out. So when I see people that are already giving up before they even try, then I just feel like I'm not even tired. So it like super motivates me.
Yeah, I'm a little guy. I always like it when I pass some big dude. I'm always like, I just passed him. I'm awesome. Did you guys each go through kind of that bout of depression, and then, and if so, how was that, and what was the turning point that's like, you know what, screw this, I'm gonna get on with my life?
Finding something you're passionate about. For me, it was people. I'm passionate about people, mostly because I'm fortunate enough to have awesome people in my life, and I know how important it is, and a lot of people don't. And find someone that's worth hanging on to. Be passionate about them.
So what would your advice be to somebody that was in a similar situation that just gone through that?
It's tough, man, and I don't know what makes me me and why I am who I am, and if I could teach people how to do that, well, then I would be worth $1 million, because I have no idea. I just do it, and I hope to one day be able to share that with people instead of just doing it.
Well, something that Todd says too. He says, I'd much rather lose 50% of my blessings and be 100% aware of them than to have all my blessings and never even know it. So I think that really defines you.
What about you? Did you also go through that slump of depression, and how did you come back from that?
I was in bed for 2 years straight, and in and out of the hospital, and in lawsuits, and the man who hit me passed away, and it was just all these things. And before I got hit, I was an aid worker, so I work with orphans and refugees and abused women and children. So the orphanage I was setting up in Mexico, all the plans fell through. So I felt that guilt on top of it, and I was hearing I'm going to be in a wheelchair forever, and so I was just sitting in my bed, just thinking like, my life is over. There's no point. So I felt like I just was never going to get out of this dark hole. So I planned out how to end my life. I wrote a suicide note. And I was like figuring out how to do it, and I thought I'd just take a whole bunch of pills and just end it like that. And then I realized like it was almost felt good to know that I had an out. But first of all, I'm like, well, I was in 2 accidents. If I jump off the Brooklyn Bridge, I'm just gonna bounce and be more injured. I'm obviously not dying for a reason. There's a reason I'm here. And my teeth were never scratched in my accident, so I felt like that was God saying like, keep smiling.
You do have beautiful teeth.
Thank you. Then just keep smiling, it'll be fine. And so I started off giving myself 3-month increments. Like, if things don't get any better, you can do it, you can end it. But then things are actually worse. And then after a while, I realized most people, they're afraid to die. So they don't live. They're just always afraid. And I realized, I'm not afraid to die. So why am I afraid to live? Like, if I end my life, then it's going to be defined by this chapter, and I don't want it defined by this chapter. So I started realizing, I saved other people in my travels. Why can't I save myself? So then I started thinking about being an athlete my whole life. And now it doesn't matter if the scoreboard reads Life 100, Sullivan 0, if it's only halftime, I still have time to turn it all around. So then I started pumping myself up and watching like Rocky IVs and Gladiators, and I'm like, you got this. It doesn't matter how long it's going to take you, you got it. And all you have to do is just be better than who you were when you woke up in the morning. It's all about baby steps. You don't have to walk to take baby steps. You just do whatever you can. And helping other people, I think, is really what motivates me, knowing that other people, there's all these little girls now with disabilities that are like training for Spartan races, and they send me videos doing burpees with crutches, and like all these kids that like training for 5Ks in their wheelchairs, and they send me videos, and I would get run over all over again if it meant that I could reach them somehow. So I know everything happens for a reason. You just have to trust in the plan, and if you can use adversity to make you into a better version of yourself, then it's a blessing. And people always want to know, will you be how you were before you got injured? And the truth is, I will never be how I was before I was injured. I'm going to be better.
ObstacleRacingMedia.com is your source for news, race reviews, on-location interviews, and a whole bunch of other stuff. ObstacleRacingMedia.com. Trust me, you'll love it, right?
Yeah, obviously.
Okay, good. Now shut up and be sexy.